Gaming and BS. Coming to you Wednesday, January 31st, 2018, episode 175. Welcome to Gaming and BS, tabletop RPG podcast. This is one of your hosts, Sean.
This is Brett. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you on board. How you doing, Sean?
I'm glad to be on board.
Are you glad to be on board? That's good. I'm glad you're on board, Sean.
It's better to be on board than off board.
That's true. That's very true. So let's see here. Since last we talked, Sean and I have mentioned we're both going to GaryCon. Sean, you're still going to GaryCon, right?
That's the plan, Stan.
I think Kevin is going to show up for a day, too.
What?
Yeah. Kev Lovecraft may be coming down, which would be kind of cool.
That's crazy.
So hopefully we can make that work. I was going to go to Origins, and Joe Swick, God bless him, mentioned to me, hey, that's Father's Day weekend. And in Brett's head, I heard, hey, that's near Father's Day. And I went, whatever, it's no big deal. I'll be home in plenty of time. It'll be fine. And my lovely wife says, that's Father's Day weekend, right? I'm like, no, it's close to it. She goes, what do you mean close to it? Apparently, I suck at calendar. So I look at it, I'm like, holy fuck, that is actually Father's Day weekend. And traditionally, over Father's Day weekend, I do stuff with my kids. So I'm going to bail on Origins this year. Wah, wah, wah. Not going to go. Going to spend time with the family instead.
Are you recording a video right now?
Yes, I am.
I am not.
I think so. Oh, wait, I should start now. I wasn't. I was ready to go. Should I start?
Let's do it again, yeah.
Start the whole thing over?
Yeah, just do new movie recording.
There we go. Now I'm going.
All right.
Off to the mic. Shall I start over?
Yeah, well, you can start over.
Okay. You just going to double over the top of it, or what are you going to do?
We'll be fine.
We'll be fine.
We'll start now.
We'll start now.
Welcome to Gaming and BS. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Welcome to the show. Welcome back. Glad to have you on board.
We're doing this. So Brett and I did this in audio, so you're kind of like, what the hell are they doing? So we want to tape this for YouTube. So we're going to try to put it up on YouTube.
Yeah, see if we can make that work.
Yeah.
Sean's got the 80s glasses rocking again. He's ready to see everything, apparently. So I said this before. I'm going to say it again now that it's going to be on YouTube. But Sean and I are definitely going to GaryCon. Kevin Lovecraft may be coming down as well, which would be cool if he can make it. I was going to go Origins, but I'm not. Turns out Origins, as Joe Swick tried to tell me, but I'm an idiot, is actually Father's Day weekend. Excuse me. So my lovely wife got a hold of me and said, hey, it's Father's Day weekend. And I'm like, no, it's not. Father's Day is like close to it. It's like the weekend before or after. She said, no, it's actually there. Looked it up, and yeah, by God, that's Father's Day weekend. And traditionally speaking, Father's Day weekend, I spend the time with my kids. So I'm going to stay home and not go to Origins and do some stuff with my kids, which will mean, of course, I'll be running D&D for my kids. I think my middle daughter, Rianne, has played with me before. She loves that. She's going to be home from college that weekend, too, so we'll probably get her in on a little D&D gaming. So, yeah, not going to do Origins this year. Kind of sucks. Oh, and just in case anybody follows me or anything on Facebook, I fucking hate Facebook. And I went through it, and I had a bunch of people that I'm like, oh my God, I'm sick of these political posts. So I went through, was cleaning out comments and shit people were sending me and chats and all this crap. And yeah, I think I deleted people that I didn't mean to delete. I think I unfriended people and all that crap. So if I did that, I apologize. Hopefully no harm, no foul there. But yeah, anyway, I'm a Facebook tard, so that's the problem there.
So that's
Facebook moron.
That's your story, and you're sticking to it.
Yeah, that's the truth. I'm just an idiot. So anyway, you have any announcements, Sean?
I do not have any announcements.
All right. Shall we random encounter?
We shall.
We shall.
Random encounter. Want me to read, dude?
Yeah, you started off.
Matt S. emails us. Hi, BS. As a Wisconsin native and Madison grad in his early 40s, discovering your podcast last month was like opening the fridge to find a six-pack of Schlitz Tall Boys hidden behind mountain of leftovers.
I know what that is. I know what all of those things are. That's awesome.
Where you been, Matt?
Hey, good to hear you, brother.
Yeah. All right. I've made my way through most of the episodes and have found them interesting, educational, and entertaining. Matt, are you sure you're listening to us? Yeah, you're muted, dude.
Sorry. I heard you say that, and I almost did a spit take because I'm like, that's Schlitz Tall Boys talking right there. That's what that is. Anyway, keep going.
All right. I've made my way through most of the episodes and how... Oh, okay, I already read that one. As a person new to the hobby, I bought and started running the 5e starter set for my kids and wife last year, and am now also in a weekly gaming group. I am always looking to sponge up insight and information. To that end, I've been using a combination of my play experiences and other data, such as podcasts, articles, reading through core books, etc., to help define what I am looking for in a game, and also how to facilitate that as a player and GM. Your last episode relates to what I've discovered so far, and I'm interested in what you might think. For me, immersion is everything. I do not have a background in drama or writing, so becoming my character and being in the scene is one of the things that does not come naturally to me. Anything that aids in helping me achieve these is therefore hugely beneficial. Your last episode, based on the way I listened, discusses another device to enhance the richness of player experience by providing a greater depth of immersion. I find that any metagaming breaks the immersion, which, for new players like me, is not necessarily easy to achieve. As you discussed, HP is very metagamey, and I am finding that it is fairly ubiquitous and accepted. I would love to have a modification to damage tracking which provides narrative license to the game master and players while still allowing for results mostly governed by player choice rather than narrative invention. This would be the rule with exceptions given to particularly well-described situationally dramatic or just effing badass cinematic descriptions. Here is the rub, and might be the only contribution this email has to the discussion. Number one, as a GM, I would find it tough to take on the additional bookkeeping associated with hidden hit points.
You mentioned that, Sean, when we were talking about it. It's one of those things that, like, wow, that'd be really great in practice, and then you think, oh, shit. Somebody has to write that stuff down, so I totally get that.
Dude, you muting your video? Oh, You're coming. Hold on a second.
Better?
Say again?
Better? That should be better. Okay.
Yeah. Right, we got too much stuff going on over here. Sorry.
Way too much. Holy crap.
I'm like, Brett, you're coming through like 5 different orifices.
I'm everywhere, dude.
Yeah.
I'm in all your openings. I don't know what that means. Carry on.
Number 2. In order to achieve the ideal combination of player narrative control during combat and the GM reacting with realistic outcomes, or vice versa, the complexity of damage and condition tracking would increase even more.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you'll find when you run a game like Rollmaster or any game that has a critical hit system will say, oh, you take 2 points of damage a round, or you're stunned for 3 rounds, stunned and bloodied, or every time you start laying conditions on, it can get complicated.
In Brett's example, he refers, I believe, to a player receiving a stunning blow to his shield arm and adjudicates a damage and condition resulting from this. Would a blow to the head or / helm induce the stunned condition? If so, I could see players always narrating an attack to the head or shield arm to gain a tactical advantage with every attack. Maybe I'm overcomplicating it. But in order to solve this, I would have to come up with some downside associated with attacking the head or shield arm to counteract this, which also makes narrative sense since these are vital areas for the defender to protect and would therefore be harder to hit or leave the attacker open to counter. I guess this leads me to have to agree, for the first time in this kind of discussion, with Sean.
Oh.
Checks in the mail, Matt. And say that while I love the added flavor and immersion that this kind of gameplay provides, it might be clunky and difficult to incorporate unless the system natively supports it. Lastly, can you give a new hobbyist like myself some tips or resources to help with getting into character and or immersion? Any help would be greatly appreciated, as I'm an engineer, so people scare me, and I are words and feelings, not smart. Thanks for the read, and hope to see you guys at GaryCon or Gamehole. Matt.
Well, sweet. Thanks, Matt. I'll tell you what, man. I've been thinking about the immersion piece. Sean and I have talked about it briefly, and obviously you've listened to the episodes. I think we need to dedicate some time to it. So that's going to go on the list. In fact, it might be next week's episode. So I've been toying with a couple of them here. But I think your statement and Sean's do have merit around if the system doesn't natively support it. My first thought is, well, if you want to have, players constantly attacking the head or the shield arm to gain advantage, you jack up the difficulty. If you're using a armor class, you raise it. It's basically called shots is what you're trying to do. And the other thing to always remember is the bad guys do the same thing. There's no reason that the goblins wouldn't try to whack you in the head with a club, or the orc chieftain wouldn't try to cut your kneecaps off, or whatever it is. So whatever fancy thing that's good enough for the players to do to your bad guys and monsters, the bad guys and monsters are more than welcome to do the same thing back. So anyway, that would be taking an existing systems mechanic, trying to utilize the mechanical components to it. If it has called shots, utilizing that. If not, something of plussing or minusing up the modifier on the to-hit roll in one way or another to try to make it tougher. Cool. I like it, though. Cool. Thanks, Matt. Thank you very much for listening and for writing in, brother. That's cool. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. You ready?
You're just so high on the fact that somebody agreed with you. I'm not even sure what I'd do with that.
I think I'm doing all right, man. I think my track record's okay, considering.
Yeah, this start of the 2018, it's the year of the Sean. I like it.
Uh-oh.
It's the year of the Sean, 2018.
Oh.
There it is. I'm saying it. All right. Steve Orlick emails us in Hidden Hit Points. See if he can help me out here. Hello, gents. In regard to the topic of hidden hit points, I feel I must reiterate a sentiment from the last email I sent to the show. I'm with Brett. Oh, yeah.
Thanks, man.
Oh, yeah. He continues. Now, don't get it twisted. I've got nothing but love for you too, Sean. I've agreed with.
Okay. Okay.
I've agreed with many of your views in past episodes. If I ever remember any of them, I'll be sure to write in and let you know. Steve, you're not my new favorite person.
Yeah, Steve's all right. He's good people.
Seriously, though, when Brett described what he meant by hidden hit points, my eyes lit up, my brain went, yes! I'm a D&D guy, but like Brett, I homebrew a lot to fit my style. As a DM and player, I much prefer story over mechanics. I really like the hidden hit point concept. However, I think it can run into problems in fights with a lot of participants. As Sean said, one more thing for the DM to keep track of. See, Sean, I told you I agree with you sometimes. I also think there'd be a lot of flack from players at the first character death. If I would have known how hurt I really was, I would have run away. Whine, whine, complain, complain. Damn players. Hashtag need a safe space. I think the idea is worth digging into and finding out if it can work. I'd be happy to join you online if you seriously want to give it a go. Keep up the BS. Love both you guys. Steve Orlick. Yay, Steve. My new favorite guy.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
Over to you, Sean.
Eli Kurtz. He comments on Google Plus on Hidden Hit Points. Another fine episode, gents. Personally, I love the style of play that Brett summarized as hidden hit points, with plenty of narrative description to accompany combat actions. I think the trouble comes from trying to shoehorn that play style into mechanics that aren't intended to model it. I totally agree. A few months ago, I was trying to find a concise definition of what D&D does best. With the help of a few folks, I boiled the game down to these essential pieces. D&D is a game of scaling, meta-tactical, high fantasy action, and resource management. Profound.
Yeah. I don't know.
Uh-oh.
I don't know.
Uh-oh.
We just did this thing at work.
At work? What the hell? You playing D&D at work?
God, that'd be awesome.
No,
anyway, that'd make my life better.
I'd want to go work there.
Every time,
pay me cheaper.
Every time I get a new boss or something like that happens, somebody goes, "We're going to do this strength finder thing. We're going to find out how good we're going to classify you and put you in a box." is how Brett sees all of those things. So as soon as someone...
It's better than Myers-Briggs.
I just saying, it's the same type of thing. As soon as someone says, hey, I know what something is, and then they codify it down to one specific thing, I go, ugh! But it is Eli Kurtz, and he's a super sharp dude, so I will give him the benefit of the doubt. And I read this here, and as you read it out loud, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think that's not too boxing in. That leaves room for interpretation. It's not the end of the world. I'll let him get away with it. I'll let it slide.
I'm interested to know your 5 strengths, Brett.
Drinking and complaining.
That's not in the book.
No, it's not.
All right.
I'll tell you what a bad way to do those strength finders, just as a note for people. Don't do it the day before it's due, actually a half hour before it's due, and take it in a rage. Don't do that. Your results are probably skewed. Go on.
Hop tips. He continues, it's a game about growing in power and using that power to overcome increasingly difficult tactical challenges. It's also a game where the metadata, hit points, armor class, spell slots, etc., takes center stage in the experience of play. Fans of D&D could talk about its potential or narrative, exploration, immersion, and everything else. They're not wrong, but the core of what the game does is about balancing explicit, quantifiable resources against threats.
I wouldn't say balancing. I would say managing. But fair point, Eli. Keep going.
I've got no beef with people who prefer that style of play, but like I said, it's not my ideal. I've tried to add more narrative damage into D&D, but every D&D fan I've played with has pushed back just like Sean did in the episode. It makes sense. Hidden damage changes the game's fundamental relationship to resource management. Ultimately, mechanically, narrative damage is not what the game tries to do, and it's not what the fans seem to want. Wounds in Savage Worlds are a good midway point between purely narrative systems and D&D style tactical play. At one point, Brett gives an example. He quotes, "The hits don't seem to affect the giant, but then there's a loud crack when the dwarf lands a blow on the giant's chest." End quote. Maybe I've played too much Savage Worlds, but that sounds exactly like a bunch of characters failing to roll higher than the giant's toughness, then one lucky dude getting a few raises to break through and inflict the first wound. It's a lot easier to describe those combat turning points when you've only got 4 wounds per wild card. It also helps that Savage Worlds wounds actually apply a penalty when you suffer them. So I guess I agree with both of you. I love Brett's idea, and I think both of you are right to say combat is better with narrative description, but Sean's right too. Making a mechanical change is too radical for D&D.
I kind of want to argue with him, but I kind of want to agree with him at the same time. What he says makes sense, and yeah, I get it. I totally get it.
Eli, he's just has wisdom beyond his years.
Apparently. Well, the other piece is that I was talking with oh God, who the hell was I talking to? Edwin Nagy. We were talking about he said something to me. We're emailing back and forth about something I was working on with Avalon, and he had said, sometimes, Brett, I think you put too much faith in the players. I'm paraphrasing, but basically, not all players are as good as you'd like to think they are. He was being very nice about it, and it's not necessarily. I mean, I'm saying good. I don't think Edwin said anything quite that demonstrative, but the fact that I do tend to assume the best. Like I'm like, oh, they'll figure it out. Oh, they'll sort it out. And I think perhaps if I have a game design brain of any kind, it's like, look, this is the type of game I want to play, and if it's not what you like, if you don't like Brett's version of D&D, well, then I guess it's not for you, and then just move on with it. But I do get your point, Sean, and again, what Eli references here, too. That does make sense. And I don't... That Savage Worlds component does make sense, and when you talk about smaller numbers, like 4 wounds for the wild card, I mean, that totally makes sense, right? It's easy to describe when there's only 4 wounds, cutting things in quarters is pretty simple as opposed to saying it's got 150 or 78 hit points or something like that. A little bit different. Yeah, good perspective, man. Good perspective.
Yeah, and if you want to know more, if you want to hear Eli really be in his element, you have to go and check out his podcasts. Is it Jing Hu?
Jing Hu Hustle.
Jing Hu Hustle.
He and Eric Farmer. Yeah.
He and Eric Farmer, yeah. They talk about if you like chop sake.
Oh, hell yeah.
Chop sake and some old black belt theater back in the day. Yep. You ever watch black belt theater when you were younger, bro?
I do remember that. Yeah, that's where
it was like Saturdays or something for like 3 hours.
Yeah, you'd get like the weird old school Jackie Chan stuff. Yeah, and even older or more different.
Yeah, they talk about the movies, and I think they might even incorporate some gaming into that as well.
Usually do.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right, so Jared Rasher weighed in on hidden hit points as well. First, the technical. In the 5th edition D&D DMG, it still mentions the bloody condition, although very few things are actually triggered off of it. It's only mentioned to cite that if you need to let players know what condition adversary in bloodied is a good way to give a clue without giving them actual hit point totals. There's also a section on optional lasting injuries that I like, but I haven't had a chance to implement yet. Because it's an option rule, they can be set to be assigned when a character drops to 0 hit points, when they take a crit, or when they fail a death save. The first mention that I personally recall for hidden hit points was in the 2nd edition Ravenloft campaign setting box set, where they even suggested that you might run a game without letting the players see any of their character sheet. Now, to stake out a controversial position, excuse me, since metagaming came up and has been mentioned on the show a few times, I wanted to throw this out there. I think the degree to which metagaming is a bad thing is proportional to the degree to which a GM is adversarial. In other words, if you let your players know they aren't trying to play gotcha or win a game session, they are way more likely to play up their injuries, flaws, etc. In fact, a lot of more modern games like Fate, 7C, and many Power of the Apocalypse games especially let you define what it means to fail in many circumstances. If you think your character is going out in a blaze of glory, that's what they do. In fact, there have been a few times in D&D and Pathfinder games where I wanted to go out in a blaze of glory, but because of the game rules and the way the other players interacted with the game on a more simulationist level, I would end up getting healed or saved in circumstances where I would have loved for the character to have had a meaningful exit. About D&D genre and pushing boundaries. I'm going to paraphrase Chris from Misdirected Mark here. I think that modifying a game to suit you is fine, up to a point. But there's a line which you have to decide if it's not just better to play a different game that does what you want. Excuse me. There's some dials you can turn up and down, and optional rules you can implement in D&D. It still feels like D&D. When you get to situations such as not knowing your hit points or your tracked resources, that's messing with the key elements of the game and may be pushing the boundaries a bit too much. D&D is kind of like Schrodinger's fantasy role-playing game. It's both a toolbox and a genre unto itself. It was born of stories like Conan and Fafhrd and the Mauser, with influences from Tolkien. When it can be applied to multiple worlds, it doesn't actually emulate the source material perfectly. It has so many quirks and native rules bits that quote-unquote D&D fantasy has its own feel, which can take on the flavor of other fantasy, but it can always taste the D&D base. It's very boring just to say, I did 23 points of damage when you hit, but it's also cumbersome when people have triple-digit hit points to narrate every single hit, as well as missing the point that hit points aren't just wounds, but they're also stamina and luck as well. There isn't much that supports it in the rules, but narrative descriptions are something that should be used, but not for every hit in the game. This is where narrating things like critical hits and the bloody condition can come in handy as reminders to throw more descriptions at various times. There are Power by the Apocalypse games where you take a set number of tags when you get hit, prompting you to describe what happened to your character. That's also something that Fate does, when you take a consequence. But it's not actually something baked into D&D, and awareness and management of your resources is actually part of the game. Hidden hit points may make for an interesting experiment, but I don't think it would be sustainable for a group that really wanted a game to feel like D&D. So, Jared, I'll tell you, man, I do get where you're quoting Chris, if you modify a game to a point. My argument back to that is always, one, who are you to tell me what point is too far, right, for my group? Any more than I could tell you, oh, that's not far enough, or whatever it is. You are right, though, that I think it comes down to the group. That if the group you're playing with wants it to feel a lot like D&D rules as written, yeah, you fuck with it too much, they're going to riot on you. It's not going to work. When I'm running, again, to my earlier point, I tend to think, hey, this is how I play, and if it doesn't feel like the way you want it to feel, you know where the door is, because that's where y'all come in. But generally speaking, I don't know if D&D would be the absolute right one to do it with, because, again, it's heavy on the number crunchies and keeping all the paperwork and so on, and the resource management, as people have mentioned. But I also don't play a lot of high-level D&D. I don't go much past 10th level before characters start retiring. So some of the problems that huge hit point numbers get into and so on don't really impact me much because I'm not oftentimes playing in that space. But I do get it. If there's a better game system out there that does something similar, one of the things that throws me and my gamers, and my core home group for a loop, is that we have certain things that we really like out of D&D. Spells, armor class, some of the tropes, and some of the things that are very familiar and that we really like playing with. And for us mucking about with the rules, or even bending it to a point where an outsider would look at that and say, that's not freaking D&D, that's Brett's game. Just call it Brett and D, or whatever the hell you want to call it. It's not that. I think that's legit, and it's by group and by the people. That's how I see it. But all that said, your points are valid, and I think the other thing I really like that you threw out there was the metagaming component. The adversarial nature of the DM or GM, the degree of that adversarial approach, I think does really impact the metagaming direction. If you're used to playing with someone who's trying to play gotcha, or, hey, watch how I can fuck over the players, or vice versa, yeah, I can see where everybody gets very metagaming at that point. Sean, you got anything on that one? Or, I'm sorry, I rambled on you.
No, I think that adversary piece is maybe something to explore.
Yeah, I agree. I think the interesting thing with adversarial game mastering, we're going to have to put that in the topic bin too, is that there's different levels of it, right? There's sometimes people want game masters to, fight like they mean it, and other ones like, no, you have to always be an advocate for the player. And then again, it's around definitions, right? How far, what level of adversary are you willing to tolerate before you go away from it? So, all right, we're going to add that one to the bin as well. You read the next one while I do that.
Carlin of the Hill People also chimes in on Google Plus about hidden hit points. When I first got back into the hobby after moving to a new town, I ran 3.5 D&D and tried an experiment of hiding the HP from the players. Results were interesting and ultimately put my GM description skills to the test. Having to describe a small scratch differently from a club to the brain pan in a way that told the player, hey, you don't have much health left, but be careful, was challenging but revealing about how little we think about what hit point loss looks like. Ultimately, I stole the bloodied mechanic from 4E, but made it so something narrative would happen to... Let me rephrase that. Ultimately, I stole the bloodied mechanic from 4E, but made it so something narrative would happen to the character every quarter of their hit points, be it a stab wound that is leaking, a hit to the funny bone, or loss of footing. Sounds vaguely similar to Mr. Kurtz above.
I do. I like that.
Right? Yeah, 4 wounds, quarters. Players started recognizing these prompts and could ultimately figure out how much health they roughly had left, but usually had a slew of other problems to take care of because they hit those bloody checkpoints on their HP track. The index card RPG does something like this, sort of. Players and tasks have hearts to determine health and how much effort it takes to accomplish something. Each heart is always worth 10 hit points, so players and foes are always on a level playing field. You always know that a foe with 3 hearts is a big deal, but ultimately that's just 30 HP to slog through. However, the loss of a heart is kind of like a GM and player cue to say, hey, this guy just lost a good chunk of their health. What does that look like? Hearts are also used to perform tasks like open locked chests or climbing up a wall. You would roll to see if you succeed in making progress, then roll an effort die to see how much progress you make toward the goal. So a 1 heart wall climb attempt might take multiple tries if you're rolling only a d6 for effort unless you roll a critical on your initial roll, which adds another dice. All this to say, hiding hit points is challenging, but it can be done. At higher level with double and triple digit health, it can become a chore to narrate. But at that point, you might as well be playing Dungeon World or Black Hack with low HP and simpler rules.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Excuse me. The cards thing is the index card RPG. Interesting. I don't know that one.
I've seen it. I don't know much about it.
I have heard of and seen it online, but I do not know much about it either. The thing that's interesting to me is that at the end of the day, I mean, everybody has, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but you start playing and then eventually you become a game designer or you want to build a thing. And you say, hey, I like this piece, that piece, and the other piece. You know, as we talked with Rob Whelan about, you know, you steal shit constantly. And you try to make something that is whatever variation of balanced or conforms to how you want to game. So that's interesting stuff. I love stealing shit from other games and making it fit in my home game. I mean, that's the whole concept of Game Master player advice is taking things that you learn or read, figure out, or whatever, and then cranking it somehow so it fits into your stuff. I like it. So, cool. Very good stuff. Thank you, Carlin.
Thanks, everybody. There were other comments on Google+. Some back and forth between a few people. So if you'd like to know more, we'll have a link in the show notes to some of the conversation there.
Nice.
On to the main topic, shall we?
Yes.
All right, Brett.
With Sanity, man. We're talking about Sanity.
Sanity!
Yes. So I'm thinking about this for a couple different reasons. One, hidden hit points brought this to my mind. And two, I was running...
Because it was a crazy idea.
That is a crazy idea. And my friends and I have talked about Sanity in the past, in games and real life, of course. But talking about games, mental illness, these types of mental conditions, basically, in gaming. And I'm running Warhammer First Edition RPG for my friends. I just finally got... Because of the holidays and running EverCon, it pushed our larger second session off to just this last Saturday, and I ran for a good 9 hours, which is a pretty good stretch for me. So had a lot of fun there. And one of the things that you do is you gain insanity points as opposed to losing sanity points. You gain a point of insanity. So slightly different approach to things. But the fact is that
You get that in Warhammer?
in First Edition, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, you get insanity. There's insanity in it.
I see.
And I know even in 5e there are optional rules around sanity. I was going to try to brush up on those before I got to the desk today, but I didn't get out of work in time. So anyhow, Sean, when you play RPGs and you think about sanity, losing mental, capacity, mental illness, blah blah blah, especially sanity is usually how it is viewed. Do you only think of like Call of Cthulhu and horror games, or what do you think about when you hear that? Hey, this game has sanity mechanics in it. Do you think, yay, I love that shit, or what?
Call of Cthulhu.
That's what you think?
Yeah, most of the times. Because that's kind of intricate to the game, I think.
Integral.
To that particular game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a Call of Cthulhu, Trail of Cthulhu. Hell, Dread uses Jenga blocks to track sanity. So,
well, that's a resolution mechanic in Dread.
Yeah, but it's still a thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's specific to sanity though.
Fair enough. Fair point. It's been a long time since I looked at a copy of Dread. But anyway.
Yeah, it's something you're doing and then you're like you might get shot, pull a thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've played other games where I've tried to use sanity or willpower, stability, something along those lines. And I think as I like to run dark, gritty games sometimes, we think about, your average, especially if you're playing a game with average schmo, which is one of the things for Call of Cthulhu. One, the Cthulhu mythos is fraught with people going fucking nuts because dealing with outer entities from an ambivalent, a nihilistic universe would drive one mad. But you're also a regular guy and lady who's happened upon a thing. You start investigating into what the problem is with, your great aunt Hilda who just died, and lo and behold, Investigator Mary, Investigator Sam walk into the room, and there's a Bayaki. Holy shit, that's insane. It makes no sense. You lose sanity points. I also think that when I've run games where people are hunting monsters, even in a modern style game, it makes sense to me to track some sort of mental stability. Where you're running into things that don't make sense. You're running into stuff that's dangerous. Where I think it gets kind of more difficult is in a fantasy game a lot of times. I know Heroes of Horror, which is a 3-5 hardcover book by WotC for D&D, had some sanity type mechanics in it and stuff, if I recall that one correctly. And I know Ravenloft box sets from second edition talked about going insane, and there were different old Dragon magazine articles and such. And I think that when you get to some of the fantasy games, it becomes harder to justify it because adventures are fucking nuts, right? We go down like, oh Christ, it's weird, it's creepy, it's gibbering mouther, and if you were to flip that and say, well, there's a gibbering mouther, but it's in a Call of Cthulhu setting, you'd be like, oh, clearly a roll for sanity. And I think it's one part and parcel to the genre and the game system and so on. But it feels like one of those things, and maybe it's just in the gamer circles I run with running horror games and such, that it feels like something that should be a part of games more often in some cases. And maybe it makes things less heroic or something, but I like having it in my games, tracking sanity, because it gives me one more thing to help remind the players that from an immersion perspective, this is dangerous or this is mind-shattering. Because you can describe a thing as a pulpy, tentacle-headed creature with 2 arms, 2 legs. It's a purplish hide. It's tentacles writhing at you as it rips out your buddy's brain. Like, fuck, what is that? Oh, it's a mind flayer or an illithid. Fine. But should that not drive you a little nuts? Or does it not have the potential to cause problems like that? Or just because you're an elf and an adventurer, you don't care? So, anyway, just some off the top of my head thoughts, Sean. What is that? I see you've got the thoughtful face. What does that mean? You ignoring me?
This is my thoughtful face.
And that's you hitting the mic.
No, blasted mic. I agree, Brett.
So if I were to, in Star Wars, there's no sanity points. Then is there sanity points in FFG Star Wars? Anything like that? No,
not that I'm aware of.
And I don't think it necessarily fits there.
No,
no
insanity and
no insanity in Star Wars.
That's the dark side. Right?
That's the dark side talking.
When you get you lose your marbles. I don't think you lose your marbles though. You there's a self-centeredness around the dark side of the Force.
Or you just become morally ambiguous. Depends who's writing the movie at the time.
Indeed.
But
I do agree. Like in D&D, and you're going in the crazy dungeons and encountering crazy monsters, you still leave with all your mental capacity intact.
Yeah. Well, that was
really
nuts. I've been covered in gore for the last 5 days. I've been slogging through goblin villages and murdering goblin babies. I'm fine. It's all fine.
It's all kind of the world. Like, it sounds like going down to the grocery store, man.
Yeah.
I ran into a crazy rabid dog. It was nuts. Oh, this happened to be like a mind flayer or a beholder. It was floating in the air, ball, eye stalks.
Yeah. Didn't want to hit it.
Just another day at the office.
I think we said about world, and this calls back to, I think, Eli Kurtz, and especially in the comments we just read, is that if you're playing D&D Greyhawk, D&D Forgotten Realms, D&D Fantasy, that type of setting where it's not part of the world, right? It's going to be a harder sell. If you were playing Ravenloft, you'd be like, oh, it's gothic horror. There's horror involved. Okay. Warhammer Fantasy has a darker, nastier feel to everything. So it makes some sense that it's in there. And modern day Monster Hunters and so on, I think is definitely I've tried to include it in games that the world was not built specifically around it being important, saying, hey, we'll add this to our D&D game. Just a standard Greyhawk-y style D&D game. It always gets forgotten because you're playing and it's a new mechanic, and because it doesn't fit the world, nobody fucking cares. So I think it's one of those things you could easily introduce. You could easily steal a mechanic for sanity from Call of Cthulhu, anything. Use the optional ones in 5e or whatever. You could easily steal that mechanic and stick it into another game that doesn't have it if the world supports it. I mean, if I took that mechanic and slammed it into FFG Star Wars, it'd be like, what? It's not Star Wars worldy at all, and that's why I threw the example out there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, taking rules from this game and that game, slamming into this game.
It just runs against your grain, doesn't it? You just can't
I always get perplexed about this whole dynamic about might as well just play Brett PG.
Yeah, totally.
Brett PG.
Well, if I ever get really bored and have nothing but time, I'll make my own. But even then, whatever.
Right.
But I'll tell you what. As soon as you or anybody else can prove to me that they run every game by every rule exactly as written and never modify anything, then I'll take criticism around that.
That's every game I run, Brett.
Yeah. You play Savage Rules? Nope. Fuck the rule book, says Sean.
God, you're going to hold that against me forever.
I'm not holding it against you. I'm just reminding you of a thing that you do.
All right, fine.
So, sorry, go ahead.
It's not like I ran Savage Worlds and then put in like, all right, everybody's got armor class. We're going to play armor class.
No. That would be a little nuts.
Right. Well, that'd be insane.
Oh, there you go.
Gus, where are you, buddy?
I don't know.
He's sleeping.
He's sleeping over there.
Yeah, he's sleeping.
So, the interesting thing to me is that whenever any game, honestly, that has Insanity, even if you decide, hey, I'm going to add it or not, so say it's world-based, we agree there. It's funny, but not everybody, a lot of folks I've played with over the years, even my core group and others, how you deal with Insanity in the game, people want it to be either permanent, debilitating, look, I went irrevocably mad, had to be put down like a mad dog, or they want to make sure that there's a way to fix it. Which, if anybody's ever dealt with people who have, mental handicaps or, mentally distraught or conditions, whatever, I'm positive you don't just spend a week with the alienist and suddenly feel a whole lot better and you're no longer a kleptomaniac. It probably doesn't work like that.
Yeah, that's a fair statement.
So in a game that's trying to replicate, hey, this would be a real effect, then saying, hey, well, after 2 months of treatment, you're fine. I don't think that works that way. But people that I've played with tend to be all too happy, weirdly so. I'm megalomaniacal. I'm a homicidal maniac now. I guess I'm crazy. I'll go catatonic. The most extreme versions of insanity are the ones that people gravitate towards. You saw the Bayaki in the room. Inspector Mary goes crazy. What do you think would happen? I think she's now psychotic. Yeah, she's totally psychotic now. Like, whoa. I have found that has been a case. Sean, I know you've played Call of Cthulhu. You've played Trail with me.
I have.
And we had a little bit of insanity here and there, poking, prodding people. I think your character had some.
I most certainly was crazy.
But you didn't lean directly into, well, I'm a homicidal maniac with, arsonist tendencies. That wasn't where you went.
No.
Were you tempted to go there, though?
I was, a little bit.
You played Call of Cthulhu and other games with Sanity in the past, yeah?
Yeah, yep.
Did you notice the same thing, or is it so long ago you didn't notice, or you don't remember?
It's been a while.
Okay.
I think I'm the one of the sane ones when I play.
I could see that, actually.
I end up being like this, I don't know, I must be like last man standing. Yeah, and seem to have my wits about me for some reason. I don't know what it is.
Kevin has run, Cthulhu has played a lot of Call of Cthulhu and various other things, and he has played in a lot of games with me that have Sanity and so on. And he's helped a lot in case of, I think this is because you try to, if you inflict insanity on someone, say, you're now a megalomaniacal prick, they're like, oh, crap. But oftentimes, you want to say, well, your character's going crazy. This is the situation. This is where you're at. You failed your role. You're down to the point where your sanity or the Jenga tower falls over or whatever mechanic we're using. You're nuts. I have found that if you just say, here's the insanity you get, generally speaking, people either latch onto it with both hands, get pissed off, or something or other. It doesn't go well that way. So I try to source the room. One thing that Trail of Cthulhu would do, if I'm remembering, it's been a while since I read it, but where you basically poll the group and say, what kind of insanity do you think Sean should have?
Oh.
Type of thing. So kind of a group consensus that way. Or we kind of crowdsource at the table and say, so what's the situation? You're playing Mary. She's walked into a room. There's a Bayaki standing over the corpse of her uncle. You're looking for this. It's nighttime. There's owls or da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I think you're afraid of things that fly. Okay, sure. Look up fear of avian something something. That's your that's your insanity / hardcore phobia. That makes sense. You see that, it's difficult for you to do things. Okay, fine. But if you don't, like I said, if you just ladle it onto somebody, they tend not to buy into it. So in the case of immersion and so forth, in my opinion, it helps greatly to have the player buy into whatever it is that you're inflicting on them. It's like, well, I knew the sword fight was dangerous. I get hit with a sword. Hey, guess what? I lost 8 hit points. They buy that. They're fighting. They know that if they get hit, it's going to hurt. They know investigating horrible dark entities is going to cause insanity because it's right there on my fucking character sheet. But when they do go crazy, having them buy into the type of insanity helps, at least from my experience. So, Sean, from your side, which would you prefer to be part of the decision, or do you not care?
I think it's a hybrid, Brett. I think I have my own method that I would like to instill.
And what is that? Random table?
That's not a bad idea, Brett.
What have you got?
But no, I sometimes think that as a game master, keeper, DM, you might not let the player know they're going insane.
Going to the hidden hit points / hidden insanity.
Well, kinda.
Just think of the paperwork, though, Sean. Could you handle that kind of paperwork?
Yeah, it's very easy. It's called sticky notes.
Right. Brett is.
You write it on a sticky note.
Brett is knucking futz. There's his problem.
Sticky note. Mm-hmm. So Brett's character is going off the deep end.
Yep.
And right on there, hey, somebody's behind you looking at you.
Okay.
You throw the note at Brett. Okay, I turn around and look. Like, doesn't seem to be anybody there, but whatever. Joe Snuffy, Jane Snuffy. All right, must not be a big deal. Just keep doing that all game.
Or just that'd be the paranoia problem.
Well, that'd be the paranoia specifically, but you could write a note on there and say,
you're afraid of, you don't want to take a drink from the water bottle. Why? It's just water. It just turns you off. What?
Well, you don't tell them it's water.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Hey, you see sewage, black sludge, crap, worms in it. You're like, I'm not drinking that.
I could see
the rest of the party looks at it and drinks it, and it's water. And then you look over and you see them drinking this sludgy crap.
Yeah.
Change their reality.
Yeah, because the game master is the source of truth.
He's portraying what the person, the player character sees, feels.
And the players can be like, what the hell? And look around. Am I seeing this? Your character sees this. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I like that. I do.
That could be the battle within somebody's mind.
No, I definitely like that.
Their player character's mind and the player's mind meets, and it's a battle inside. Eventually, they're going to know. I think something's not right.
Exactly.
Yeah, what gave you that idea? The freaking mound of little notes in front of you?
or you're the only one I've been fucking with for the last 6 hours after you saw the Bayaki. Yeah. Right. The other piece I think that you're doing there, which I think is really good, is that it has to be an event that has importance to it. So if you're tracking hit points, it clearly is marching to death, and death should be freaking important. Or at least a bother, or at least some sort of a temporary way to lose money and whatnot while you get resurrected. Regardless, losing sanity and eventually going insane or having a phobia or whatever it is that strikes you, having it be definitely a story-based thing that occurs is gold. Because if you're not doing that, then it's basically, I got 5 hit points left, I'm fine. I should go get a healer, right? So it's supposed to represent mental state and all that stuff. And I think that it's serious enough and just wonderful story fodder for descriptions and that type of thing like you're describing, that it definitely makes that approach worthwhile. I think that's worth it. That's cool.
Yeah, then you get them to drink. Yeah. Get their character to drink.
Yeah.
And say, everything seems back to normal. Except now they're drunk all the time. And they think they're fine, but all their rolls are like, give me a roll. Oh, you rolled a 20? Yeah, you miss.
What happened? I don't understand. What's going on?
What happened? I don't understand. I feel fine. Yeah, you feel fine.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not fine. And then you do the opposite to the other players. You see that they're slurring their speech.
Yeah, everybody else just seems hammered.
I mean, you just gotta there's ways I think that you can get sanity or insanity in a group where it doesn't have to be like, hey, by the way, you're now going mad. Role play.
Yeah, exactly. No, you can as game master, you can help them achieve that through poking and prodding in that exact. I have done that in the past. I did not think about it, so thank you for bringing that up. I like that.
Eventually, what's going to happen is the player will latch onto it, and then they'll be like, oh, then they'll buy right in.
Yeah,
or they'll get mad, which isn't necessarily a bad thing either.
That's just.
Then you
Christ,
say,
I'm insane. Sorry. Hey, what do you expect?
I don't want to be, insane. Well, I don't know what to tell you. You know what? There's one way not to be insane.
What's that, Sean?
Hit the bottle.
Oh my God.
Hit the bottle. Take drugs. Talk to somebody.
Yep.
Maybe it's all kinds of stuff that
in a game with magic. Maybe there's a way to fix it that way. Psionics,
right.
All sorts of things.
Right.
So I'll tell you what. What this brings up to me is I love that approach. I like doing that too. God, I can't believe I forgot about that.
Dude, it's
it's the diamonds that it's the year of the Sean. We've already established that.
Well, see, Brett, you look at things like when you brought the subject up, you're like, hey, Sean, have you ever done this? Have you ever implemented sanity or insanity in certain games? And I go for, well, if I were to do that, how would I do it?
No, that's totally legit, dude. I like it.
Yeah,
I absolutely like
yeah.
it. So, a question for you, though.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but my assumption would be, hey, we're playing a game that has sanity in it. Everyone at the table has bought in. We've done the session 0. We've done all the right stuff. Assuming there's an X card, there's some option on the table, and I want to bring this up because, depending what
we're losing. I mean, we're using these pretty flippantly.
Oh, very flippantly, obviously.
Right, crazy and off the deep end. I mean, that's not to belittle folks that truly have mental problems.
And it is so there are the cliche components of, well, I'm insane, so I hit the bottle. Like Sean, we've joked about that,
well,
and
right.
it happens constantly in movies, TV, and books, and whatever. It becomes like the solution for the
coping mechanism.
A coping mechanism
yes.
for the drunken investigator, or excuse me, for the insane investigator or the Delta Green agent who's
PTSD.
on the edge. Yep.
Right. Yeah.
We need to be cognizant that some of that stuff may not be a very nice thing to say to certain people. It might not be cool to use at the table. We're throwing this out there, and I hope at this point that people clearly know that. If nothing else, if you just tuned in, make very clear. Sean and I have no disrespect for that. I know I've got friends of mine who have serious PTSD problems from military experience and so on. I have known other people who have been to therapy and are on mood-altering drugs because it helps them cope correctly and helps them deal with things and all that stuff, and that's absolutely fine, totally legitimate. I am not disparaging it, and neither is Sean. So, if you're running this, one of the reasons why, Sean poking it that way, the player goes, oh, yeah, I'm seeing things. Oh, that's a little bit different. Oh, this is a weird bit of paranoia. Okay. Then the player's buying into it, or they have a chance to push back a little bit and say, well, geez, but you're engaging the player and my concept of source the table, ask the player, what do they like, what would they be comfortable with, to me, in this space is better and safer than handing down an edict that says something. I have been ages back with a group that I was gaming with. We had one guy who hasn't played with us in forever, and this is one of the reasons he doesn't. We're talking about blah, 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 and he's like, well, that's like I could see like pedophilia would be insanity. I'm like, done. No, this is not funny.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, what? It's legit. No, we're done. No. X card hadn't been thought of at the time. There's nothing we would have. And I just went, no, kibosh, done. Not talking about that. And there were a number of other grown men at the table like, what the fuck? Where's that coming from? So, dude's not with us anymore. But regardless, you can all figure out whatever creepy man or woman would be at your game table. Unfortunately, usually a guy that may say or do something stupid and then using the game's mechanic, insanity, as an excuse to say, oh, this is what, and so on, and using that. So I'm not saying don't use it or be terrified of using it or whatever, but it's one of those things that you may not think of insanity or the descriptions of or coping mechanisms and so forth necessarily being X-cardable at a game. Because it's Call of Cthulhu. Everyone knows it. We all go crazy and die. oh yeah, I'm crazy, and then blah, and yeah, my character starts drinking, and yeah, but then I become kind of abusive drunk, and somebody at the table is going click, 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 and their little ticker in their head is going off. They're like, I can't take this, I don't need this, because of whatever it is that they've had in their life or dealt with others and whatever. So, short version, be kind, be respectful about this thing. It's very easy to take something as weighty as sanity and mental illness and convert it to a hit point mechanic. And that's fine. It helps to aid in gameplay, excuse me, and so on. But be cognizant of who you're playing with and make sure that people have an out. Some character may go insane and like, look, I don't want to do this. Can I just go catatonic and forget about a day? Sure, totally fine. Offer the options to people. Offer them a way out when they need it. So, sorry, wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's definitely warranted. So,
yeah,
it's an adult theme. Got to be careful with who's at the table. We don't know what's in their background, and how they've had to deal with it in one way or another, whether it's them or a relative or a friend. So,
exactly,
that's something that you got to keep in mind.
Now, that aside, or even that included, I should say, I find in games that it's featured in Call of Cthulhu, Trail of Cthulhu, and so on, it can be great. It really helps to... this is one of those times when I will say having a mechanic, having the number on my sheet to track, really helps me. It's metagamey, but it is so foreign to I don't know. There's something about it that helps me. Most people I play with kind of almost get more immersion, as bizarre as it is, and that it's kind of metagamey, right? But having that tool, that mechanic that says, hey, you're getting close, you're feeling twitchy, you've got a phobia, it's getting worse, you don't like cats in dark places, how much farther you want to push this, Brett? Oh my God, and at some point, it gives you more to roleplay off of, and I think it's a really good tool for that, so it can be really, really helpful.
Well, it's an analog. You can check and because insanity is not a switch it on, switch it off. Typically,
nope.
Right? It could be. You could witness something very horrible and that shake you to your core. But typically, as things progress, and you don't deal with that, or you deal with even more of that type of exposure or stress. Something that the mind is not typically used to doing.
Yep.
It then takes shape of its own. And so that's where that scale comes in, right?
Exactly. And I think the idea, my wife just came with my little kid. Sorry, I had to say goodnight to her.
That's fine.
But the,
I think the kisses were on the air.
We're on the air.
Cool.
That's all right. It's allowance,
cool.
my daughter.
Right.
She's little. Anyhow,
yeah.
Taking insanity or sanity and extrapolating it to things that are probably a psychologist, psychiatrist, someone who does this for a living go, that's not how that works. It's no different than saying hit points are a good enough description of somebody taking a two-handed sword in the face, right?
I've taken a two-handed sword to the face. I know what that's like, Brett.
Anybody who's ever seen Sean can't. Never mind. Oh, not with that hair.
Ew,
not with that pompadour, dude. There's no way. That's like a helmet. Ding! Off the top. Anyhow, I think one of the pieces I have done, even in the past, when not trying to strive for realism with sanity, but just kind of having it be, yep, you went temporarily insane. You're catatonic for right now, or you ran outside screaming, and you can't do anything for 4 hours. That an irrevocably version of that. Hey, guess what? Retire your character. The same as being permanently stuck in a hospital or something. So, anyway, I think the short version is it is really cool. I actually like tracking it. I used to think, wow, it'd be really cool to kind of hide it and so forth, but there's something about having the player have that reference point for sanity that for some reason feels different to me than hit points. And maybe it's because hit points are in every game, and sanity is only in very special games. And when I say, just very specifically tuned world games, and when it's on the character sheet, you remember, yes, in Call of Cthulhu, I could lose my mind. I need to watch that. So I think, for me anyway, sanity on the character sheet and tracking it in that metagamey sense is legit. I think it's a good thing to have. Shall we move on? Got anything more to say?
No.
So clearly, if anybody else disagrees, agrees with either Sean or me, mostly me, write in, tell us, give us a call, and if you got better ways or different thoughts, let us know.
All right.
Die
roll. What you got there, Brett?
Oh, I've got one. So last GaryCon, I was in the Goodman Games seminar, like what's new, and they brought up the fact that, hey, they're going to do a bunch of classic Into the Borderlands, Search of the Unknown, and so on for 5th edition D&D. They were going to do some really cool stuff. It looks like, actually, they may have some early release copies at GaryCon in March, so if they show up there, hope to God I can snag a copy. But, anyway, Into the Borderlands is now available for pre-order on GoodmanGames.com. So I saw it there, talked about it online, word got out from there and various other places, but hey, it's actually coming. It seems to be a little bit slower than they had initially anticipated, but yeah, you can pre-order a copy of the dang thing, so that's pretty damn cool.
You pre-order a copy, Brett?
I did not. I was hoping to snag one at GaryCon if there shows up. If it does not, if I can't find one at GaryCon, maybe I'll get Jen Brakeman to get me one. No, I'm kidding. Because she probably has 5 copies if it's coming from Goodman Games. Anyway, no, seriously, I'm hoping I can grab one at GaryCon. If I can't there, then I'm going to definitely order it. So it should be pretty cool.
When is it available?
Oh, good Lord. I just shut my little browser down. Hang tight. Do.
I mean, if it's available for pre-order.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty close. They do not have the release date itself yet. They do not have that on the page.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's coming.
All right. There's more to life than just D&D.
Lies!
Brett.
Lies! What else is there?
By Brooke H. on Pop Culture Uncovered.
This is besides wife and children and other cool things and like hunting. They're actually talking about other games to see.
Yes, other games other than D&D, Brett.
Okay, all right, I'm fine then. All right.
There's some listeners of ours that are like, finally, yes, hello. No kidding. Why do you guys reference D&D all the time? It's their 500-pound gorilla.
Yeah,
folks.
exactly.
It just is. All right. Congrats to Todd, our very own Todd Crapper, for his new role at Third Eye Games.
Yes, congratulations, Todd. That is awesome, man.
Joins the company that is Aloy Lasanta.
Yes, he is their
PIP system, amongst other things.
Yep, he's the design manager, Mr. Crapper is. Updated their logo for 2018, and yeah, he's going to make everything look really cool, slick, professional. So Todd is just an all-around awesome guy, and thankfully he listens to us and likes talking to us online, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, so you'll be involved in Third Eye Game stuff like Part-Time Gods, the PIP system, Ampere 1, Ninja Crusade, all sorts of cool stuff that they do. So very slick.
Supports the show.
Yes, he does.
So much for that, yeah. So make sure you watch him and see what he comes out with at Third Eye Games. We wish you all the best, Todd, on the new venture there. Last one, Castles and Crusades, Monsters and Treasures kickstarted. It's been funded, ladies and gents. As of this recording, it ends February 13th, 2018. So if you're listening to this after February 13th, it's probably out and you'll be able to get a copy. If you listen to this beforehand, you want to get in on the Kickstarter, well, we'll have a link in the show notes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You know, that reminds me, I should have thrown this one out there. I'm glad you mentioned this Kickstarter because the Midderlands expansion by Glenn Seal. Glenn does a lot of stuff. He's over in the UK, did some really cool stuff for Astonishing Swordsman and other good bits. I missed the last one he did, his Midderlands one. So this is out there. He still has, as of today, January 29th, he still has 26 days to go, so he's still alive and happening. I'm going to get a link in the show notes right here on this one.
Midderlands?
Yeah,
right?
Midderlands, yep. So Glenn does good work, so I want to make sure I threw that out there.
All right. Yep. So Stephen Chenal and Tim and Tyler and the gang, we always see them at GaryCon and GameholeCon, those crazy guys at Troll Lord Games.
Oh yeah. Oh, by the way, speaking of people, Edwin Nagy, who I mentioned earlier, yeah, he's doing writing for the for Glenn Seal's stuff for the Midlands. So he's involved in that. So.
Well, look at that. Little Edwin.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, got people doing all kinds of stuff. We're the ones doing the podcast, and they're the professionals.
Exactly. Well, clearly this is as good as it gets for us. So this is why I got to get. Yeah. I'm working with.
That's why we're not doing their jobs.
Exactly. Well, that's why I got Sean Merwin doing the editing for my Avalon Kickstarter and stuff. So that's still cooking and cruising on the back end of things. So got a little meeting set up with those guys. Hopefully soon we'll get things rolling and all that. But yeah, it's that's where I let the professionals do the professional stuff. So here we are.
All right. Last one.
Oh, the Joe Swick. He pointed out headrest post on G Plus for making a map out of leather. This is really freaking cool. So if you're into props and so forth, excuse me, there's a link out there for crafting a leather map that this gentleman did using a soldering iron and leather and so forth. So kind of cool. Nice little piece of like authentic gaming feel. So pretty neat. Good stuff. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, Joe, thanks, buddy. All right, Brett. I think that sums it up for Die Roll. What are we talking about next week?
Well, I was all set to actually go into Immersion because we've got that on the docket. It has been sitting there for a while. But then we got this other idea here where we're talking about adversarial GMing. So it's going to be either Immersion or adversarial GMing. Depend how combative I feel. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be one of those.
All right. Well, excellent. Can't wait till that one comes along.
It'll be good.
All right. Well, if I can get my browser to work here. There we go. This show is brought to you with help from the following BSers. Kevin Lovecraft, Joe Swick, Brett's biggest fan, Forrest DeGary, Mark Anthony Benedetti, Eric Jeppesen, Sean Nicholson, Tim Jensen, Palladian, Remy Bilodeau, Jason Hobbs, Wayne Humphrey, James Carpio, not Caprio, Pure Mongrel, Lord Tentacle, Corey Johnson, Brandon Barnes, Dan LaValle, C.W. Mellencamp, Lost Sailor, Todd McGowan, Misdirected Mark Productions, Old School DM, Jason, Christopher Gray, Finolf, Merkel Froelich, Eileen Barnes, Tony Sugarloaf Baker, Todd Crapper, Michael Drescher, With Static, Alexander Auerbach, Neil Benson, Ron Blessing, Chris Steele, Eric DeHoff Hoffman, Soldiers of Misfortune, RPG, Christopher Lane, Curtis Takahashi, Gordon Cranford, Mark Tasaka, Larry Hout, Ray Otis, Ron Bishop, Craig Huber, Xavier G, JV, John Hammersley, Derelict Radio, John Steve, Jared Rasher, Mark Richmond, Thomas Hook, Blake Ryan, Chad Glayman, Sky, Roger Braslett, Evan Harrison Cass, Craig Howard Bishop, Christian Sexy Voice Serrano, Jim Fitzpatrick, Peter Scanis, The Knights of the Night Crew, Josh Wallace, Corey Welch, Eli Kurtz, Graham Minert, Corey Wynn, and Andy Hall. Check out how you can support the show. Head over to gamingbs.com/support-us. That's it. Thanks, BSers!
This has been a Litterbox Studio production.